Hello and welcome to Indus News, live from Islamabad. I'm Naila Shujra and these are the headlines. Pakistan has slammed the United States for only considering it useful in cleaning up its mess left in Afghanistan after 20 years of fighting. During an interaction with foreign journalists in Islamabad, Prime Minister Imran Khan said Islamabad is not taking sides in Afghanistan. The Prime Minister added that a political settlement in the war-torn country is looking different under current conditions. The Taliban have captured the capital of GHAZNI province, making it the 10th capital to fall in less than a week. This comes after the United States said that it is looking to forge an international consensus on the need for a peace accord for Afghanistan. At a press briefing, State Department spokesperson Ned Price said all recent indications suggest that the Taliban are seeking a battlefield victory. North Korea says peace can only be achieved on the Korean peninsula if the United States withdraws its forces from South Korea. In an interview, the North Korean envoy to Russia said Pyongyang will treat Washington on the principle of force for force and good for good. Sin Hong Chol said Pyongyang intends to ramp up cooperation with Russia to counteract the United States. Brazil has reported more than 900 deaths from COVID-19 and over 32,000 infections in the past 24 hours. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, 102 people lost their lives to the virus and over 4,900 tested positive overnight. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 4.3 million lives and infected over 204 million people. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be back after a short break. Welcome back. Pakistan has slammed the United States for only considering it useful in cleaning up its mess left in Afghanistan after 20 years of fighting. During an interaction with foreign journalists in Islamabad, Prime Minister Imran Khan said his country is not taking sides in Afghanistan. The Prime Minister said a political settlement in the war-torn country is looking difficult under the current conditions. Khan said Islamabad had made it very clear that it does not want any American military bases in Pakistan after Washington's exit. He added that Pakistan convinced the Taliban for a dialogue, but the behavior of the Afghan president, Ashraf Ghani, shows that he is not ready for the talks.
They are now trying everything to somehow get the Americans back into Afghanistan. You know, the whole posturing right now is that they're blaming the Americans for this debacle, Pakistan and the Americans. And they are trying to somehow persuade the Americans to actually intervene.
Imran Khan said he believes the United States has made India its strategic partner now, and that's why it is treating Pakistan differently. Now moving on, the Taliban have captured the capital of GHAZNI province, making it the 10th capital to fall in less than a week. This comes after the United States said it is looking to forge an international consensus on the need for a peace accord for Afghanistan. At a press briefing, State Department spokesperson Ned Price said all recent indications suggest that the Taliban seek a battlefield victory. He said that the Taliban are violating the February 2020 deal and are targeting civilians. However, the Taliban denied targeting civilians and called for an independent investigation. Meanwhile, Afghan Interior Minister General Abdul Sattar Mirzawal said that Kabul is arming local groups to push back the Taliban offensive. Earlier, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said he could meet with Taliban's leadership to help secure peace in Afghanistan. And taking a U-turn from their hours earlier announcement, Germany and the Netherlands have decided to allow failed Afghan asylum seekers to stay temporarily. The two were among 6 European Union members who petitioned the bloc not to suspend deportations to Afghanistan. German Interior Minister Horst Seehofer said that the move comes in light of Afghanistan's security situation. In an interview, he said Germany bears responsibility for ensuring that deportations do not become a danger for those involved. Interior Ministry spokesperson Steve Adler says that 30,000 Afghans in Germany were slated for deportation. Separately, the Dutch State Secretary said that deportations will be suspended for the next 6 months due to the Taliban's advances. Over 44,000 Afghans have requested asylum in the European Union last year alone. North Korea says peace can only be achieved on the Korean peninsula if the United States withdraws its forces from South Korea. This comes amid heightened tensions in the Korean peninsula fueled by Washington and Seoul's joint military drills. The North Korean envoy to Russia said that Pyongyang will treat Washington on the principle of force for force and good for good. In an interview, Sin Hong-chol said that it is vital to strengthen North Korean forces. The ambassador argued only real force can ensure peace and security in the region. Sin added Pyongyang intends to ramp up cooperation with Russia to counter-react the United States. Meanwhile, North Korea remains unresponsive to hotline for the third consecutive day. A Palestinian man who was shot by Israeli forces in Jenin city of West Bank a week ago has succumbed to his wounds. Palestinian Health Ministry says Diadin al-Sabrini was shot 3 times in the upper body by Israeli forces on the 3rd of August. Israeli soldiers wounded 6 Palestinians with live rounds for resisting their raid on the industrial zone of Jenin. Meanwhile, the forces detained 8 Palestinian raids on the homes of the occupied Jerusalem, Nablus, and Jenin cities. Witnesses said soldiers ransacked homes and assaulted the victims before detaining them. They said the Israeli troops also injured dozens of people near Jenin and demolished a Palestinian shop in Nablus. Israel and Morocco have reached 3 accords less than a year after both agreed to normalize ties. Israeli Foreign Minister Yair Lapid signed the deals with his Moroccan counterpart Nasser Bourita in Rabat. The 3 pacts include an air service agreement and one on cooperation in fields of culture, support, and youth. The 2 sides also signed an MOU on the establishment of a political consultation mechanism between their foreign ministries. Lapid's trip will be capped today by the inauguration of Israel's liaison mission in Rabat. Morocco was one of the 4 Arab countries to establish diplomatic ties with Israel last year. At least 15 people have been killed in an attack in the Bani Bangu region of western Niger close to the Mali border. In a statement, the Interior Ministry said that the unidentified gunmen targeted civilians working in a field. This comes just after 33 people were killed by suspected militants in the same area. Bani Bangu falls inside what is known as the 3-border region between Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali. It has been the scene of a bloody attack by terrorist groups for years. An Ethiopian armed group, Omoro Liberation Army, has struck an alliance with the Tigray forces. Omoro is the country's largest ethnic group and was designated as a terrorist organization last year. It has now reached an agreement with the Tigray Liberation Front to cooperate against the government. OLA's leader, Kumsa Dibribi, says that the only solution now is overthrowing the government militarily. In an interview, he said other groups are also involved in similar discussions and talks are underway on a political alliance as well. This comes as the Tigray conflict spreads into other parts of Africa's 2nd most populous country. Brazil has reported more than 900 deaths from COVID-19 and over 32,000 infections in the past 24 hours. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 4.3 million lives and infected over 204 million people. More in this report. As the global COVID-19 cases keep rising, the blatant disregard for the nations with lesser resources becomes more evident. The United Nations set a new U.S. practice of expelling asylum seekers to southern Mexico under COVID-related public health orders violates international law. This comes as the Pan American Health Organization said the death rate is soaring in Central America, while infections are also surging in Honduras, Belize, and El Salvador. Cuba is bringing back hundreds of doctors working abroad and converting hotels into isolation centers and hospitals. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization said the pandemic is spreading at a rate faster than ever.
cases and deaths continue to rise. Last week, the 200 millionth case of COVID-19 was reported to WHO, just 6 months after the world passed the 100 million reported cases. And we know that the real number of cases is much higher. As I said recently, whether we reach 300 million and how fast we get there depends on all of us. At the current trajectory, we could pass 300 million reported cases early next year.
In Europe, France has reported more than 30,000 new daily COVID-19 infections for the first time since the 28th of April. Authorities said fully vaccinated people in England will no longer be legally required to self-isolate upon contact with a positive COVID-19 case. In Oceania, New Zealand announced plans to allow quarantine-free entry to vaccinated travelers from low-risk countries from early next year.
We cannot keep border restrictions on forever, and to be absolutely clear, we don't want to do that either, and neither do the experts we talk to. Border closures were only ever a temporary measure in order to keep COVID out before a vaccine was developed and administered. So long as the scientific evidence shows we can safely transition from a border defence to the individual armour of the vaccine, then that is the direction we will go.
Meanwhile, Australia's capital, Canberra, has also been ordered into a 7-day lockdown. Pakistan has recorded 102 COVID-19 deaths in the last 24 hours, its highest daily toll since the 21st of May. The Health Ministry says the fatalities count has reached 24,187. The ministry said more than 4,900 tested positive overnight. It says that the caseload has exceeded 1,085,000, while over 975,000 people have recovered. There are more than 85,000 active cases, of which nearly 4,600 are in critical condition. Meanwhile, Federal Minister for Planning Asad Umar says 40 million vaccine doses have been administered so far. In a tweet, Umar said that the last 10 million doses were given only in the 9 working days. Iraq's Foreign Minister Dr. Fuad Hussein says that his country wants to enhance ties with Pakistan. He said this during a meeting with President Dr. Arif Alvi in Islamabad. He went on to thank Pakistan for training Iraqi diplomats. For his part, President Dr. Arif Alvi offered help in the reconstruction of Iraq by providing skilled and trained human resources. He added that the international community must put pressure on India to stop the rights abuses in occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Earlier, Hussein said that the Kashmir dispute must be resolved through dialogue. He was addressing a press conference along with his Pakistani counterpart, Shah Mahmood Qureshi, in Islamabad. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. A tourist helicopter with 16 people on board has crashed into a lake in Russia's Far East Kamchatka Peninsula. Emergency service says that 7 passengers and 2 crew members survived, while 7 others remain missing. State news agency says the Mi-8 copter was carrying tourists from Moscow to St. Petersburg. Authorities say 40 rescuers and divers have been dispatched to the scene. The helicopter is reportedly lying at a depth of 100 meters in the lake. In July, all 28 people on board an aircraft died in a crash on the peninsula. India has failed in its mission to put an Earth observation satellite into orbit. The country's space agency suffered a technical performance anomaly in the cryogenic stage of the rocket launch. Scientists at the Mission Control Center say that the performance of the rocket was normal in the first and second stages. However, minutes later, it was announced that the mission couldn't be accomplished as intended. The satellite was launched on a geosynchronous vehicle from the Satish Dhawan Space Center at Sriharikota in southern India. It was meant for quick monitoring of natural disasters such as cyclones, cloudbursts, and thunderstorms. Chinese astronauts on board the Tiangong space station have activated the magnetic levitation experiment facility for the first time. The China Space Agency said that the scientific experiment facility includes a chamber of high-level microgravity. The Shenzhou 12 crew have spent nearly 2 months in a low Earth orbit in Tiangong's core module. The 3 astronauts in the space station are expected to complete a number of experiments until mid-September. In Turkey, 1 person has died in a landslide as floods ravaged the country's northern Black Sea provinces. Floods caused by heavy rainfalls also damaged homes and businesses while sweeping away vehicles in Bartın. Authorities say 13 people were injured when their vehicles overturned after a bridge collapsed. There were power outages in a total of 31 villages across Bartın province. The weather department has warned that strong rains in the area are expected to continue over the week. The country has faced a range of climate change disasters in recent months. The acute fuel scarcity in Yemen due to a 6-year-long war with still no end in sight has forced citizens to resort to woodlogging for a living. The trend has led to severe deforestation in the already war-ravaged Yemen. More on this report.
More than 6 years of war in Yemen has killed tens of thousands of people and left 80% of Yemen's population reliant on aid. The fuel shortages due to a coalition blockade on rebel-held areas forced businesses and families to swap diesel and gas for firewood. Yemeni lumberjack Ali Al-Imadi is one such Yemeni who had to turn to logging in his northern Mahwet region to eke out a living for his family. Al-Imadi spends hours chopping down an acacia tree with an axe as his 12-year-old nephew helps out splitting logs. An economic collapse has wiped out the farming and building work he used to travel around the country for.
In the past, you used to go anywhere like Marib, Sada or Sana and you'd be able to make a living to feed yourself and your family. But now there is nothing. Now if you work for 1 day, it won't last for 5 or 4 days of food. So I decided to stay with my family. If I get something, we eat. At least we live or die together instead of being apart for nothing.
But with the demand for firewood soaring due to fuel shortages, there are now concerns that the country's humanitarian crisis, with millions facing starvation, has compounded the risk of deforestation. This threatens both the environment of Yemen and any hope of a long-term livelihood for men like Imadi.
It's a huge number, but in 1 year, 886,000 trees are felled in Sana, which represent 10% of the country's population or the area. So if we multiply this by 10, the number becomes staggeringly high. Another study says that almost 17.5 tons of wood are burnt by bakeries.
Officials say some 5 million trees have been cut down over the past 3 years across the north in Yemen.
In Indonesia, university lecturers have developed a robot that delivers food and good wish messages to people in COVID-19 isolation. Details in this report.
This robot is helping Indonesians pass through the testing times of the pandemic by providing food and entertainment to self-isolated COVID-19 patients. It has been assembled from electric household items like pots, pans, and an old television monitor. Renamed the Delta robot after the highly contagious variant of the virus, it has also been modified to spray disinfectants.
Karena dengan kondisi COVID,
with this new Delta variant and the surging number of COVID-19 cases, I decided to turn the robot used for public services into one that sprays disinfectant and delivers food and necessities to residents who are self-isolating. I'm shifting the function to serve only the members of the community who are in need.
The village where the robot operates is in the Surabaya, which is the capital of East Java province and Indonesia's second biggest city. It has been swept up by a devastating second wave of coronavirus infections in the past month.
This robot is only implemented for use in the village, so it is not classified as a high-tech robot. It is quite simple. For the base, a used toy car chassis was used. Then for the power, we used a battery. For the movement, the commands are set through remote controller, and we use an actuator system to create a signal to move the robot.
Indonesia has become the epicenter of Asia's COVID-19 outbreak and recorded more than 3.68 million infections. Meanwhile, the country has suffered 108,000 deaths amid the outbreak.
Mexico has built a towering replica of the Templo Mayor, the Aztec civilization's most sacred site in Mexico City. Spanish forces had destroyed the temple in 1521 and had razed the Aztec capital, Tenochtitlan, after their conquest. This report has the details. Founded in 1325, Tenochtitlan was famous for its elaborate Aztec temples and advanced canal system. Spanish conqueror Hernan Cortés first arrived in Mexico in 1518 on a mission to explore the region's interior for colonization. After the fall of Tenochtitlan, the residents were reportedly forced to destroy their temples and palaces. The Templo Mayor Pyramid, also known as Teocalli, was the center of Tenochtitlan's political and spiritual life. The Aztecs venerated two main deities at the temple with elaborate pageantry and sacrificial offerings.
Es el Templo Mayor.
It is the Templo Mayor, the most important pyramid of the sacred city of Mexico, Tenochtitlan. For the Mexicas, it was the center of the universe. It was the point at which one could enter the underworld and the different celestial levels.
Tenochtitlan is now the heart of the bustling megalopolis of Mexico City. The mostly white mock temple will be shown in the main square, the Zocalo, close to the ruins of the real Templo Mayor. This is the biggest ever replica of the Templo. Archaeologists say the original temple was as high as a 15-story building.
Tenemos aquí en el Zócalo es por primera.
For the first time, we have a monumental reproduction of this great Mexica temple destroyed by the Spaniards in the Zocalo. Besides, we have the possibility to see it with a height of 16 meters. All the scale models that have been done before are similar.
The foundations of Tenochtitlan are still evident in Mexico City, with constant excavations revealing more artifacts and insights into ancient Aztec culture. The site will be open to the public from the 13th of August to the 1st of September. People will also be able to witness light and sound spectacles, which will display Mexica myths and the story of Tenochtitlan's fall. Asia-Pacific stocks have mostly declined as U.S. markets again notched highs after data showed inflation was not as bad as feared. The dollar weakened while Asian currencies rose. Japan's benchmark Nikkei 225 dipped close to 0.25%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng led the losses, shedding nearly 0.5%. South Korea's Kospi also dropped more than 0.25%. Mainland China's Shanghai Composite slipped marginally. Australia's ASX 200 traded on a flat line. It's now time to take a look at the weather updates from around the world.
Thank you. We're going to start with Abu Dhabi, where weather is expected to be extremely hot, with temperatures rising to 45 degrees centigrade. While in Amsterdam, temperatures are at 21 degrees centigrade with few clouds rolling in the sky. If we head to Ankara, there is clear weather with temperatures at 29 degrees centigrade. Moving down under to Auckland, the temperature is chilly at 16 degrees centigrade with thin layer of clouds covering the sky. Now, if you're traveling to Bangkok, there will be an expected weather which is going to have thunderstorm with temperatures around 33 degrees centigrade. In Beijing, the temperatures are going to be 30 degrees centigrade with rain in the forecast, while in Beirut you will experience sunny weather with temperatures at 33 degrees centigrade. Berliners will experience temperatures at 27 degrees centigrade under cloudy, partially cloudy sky. Heading to Cairo, the hot sun will be out with temperatures at 38 degrees centigrade. Down under in Canberra, the temperatures are at 15 degrees centigrade with a clear sunny sky. In Islamabad, the temperatures are at 35 degrees centigrade accompanied by a thunderstorm. While in Jakarta, the temperatures are steady at 32 degrees centigrade with sunny sky in the forecast. That's all for now. Back to you.
For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at Indus.News.